I was watching a prophecy series by a well-known teacher. His name's Chuck Missler. Now, I don't agree with his dispensationalist view of things, but there are verses that says, "Hold fast to that which is good," and so obviously when scriptures are mentioned and stuff like that, yeah, I look at the scriptures and these types of things. Again, I don't agree with a lot of the things he says. As a matter of fact, I favorited a lot of his Daniel videos because I'm working on uh, something here in regard to Daniel. The book of Daniel. That's apart from the series Monarchy of Israel. Um, but there was a verse I was mentioning, and this really kind of struck me. Now, and this is true. Romans 11:25 says, "For I will not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in." Okay, now blindness in part has happened to Israel. Now, when you look at Daniel 9, obviously that this is dealing with specifically to the tribe of Judah. All right. Now, not the whole of Israel, not the dispersed nation of Israel. This is specifically dealing with Judah, Daniel 9 was. But, because in the chapter previously in Romans chapter 10, I believe verse 1, it says, "It is my prayer that all Israel might be saved." So there are people that belong to Israel that won't be saved. But the thing is like until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Now, if you look at Daniel chapter 2, uh, and you look at all the kingdoms, Babylon representing the head of gold, Medo-Persia representing the chest of silver, uh, Greece representing the belly and thigh of bronze, and the pagan Roman Empire representing the two legs of iron, and the mixture kingdom of Rome, iron and clay, uh, in the feet and toes. Okay, that is specifically all Gentile kingdoms that really, in part, rule over the nation of Israel to this day. Okay, even the secular state of Israel right now. So, but what really caught my attention is the thief on the cross, the two malefactors on the cross that were beside Jesus on the left side and the right side, and this verse, Romans 11:25, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. I caught something interesting, and I want you to check it out. And, this is one of those videos where you can do further study on this and see what you come up with. As I encourage those to study the Bibles for themselves with, in this video playlist, Mini Nuggets of Truth. So, let's go up here to Luke 23, starting in verse 32. "And there were also two other malefactors, led with him to be put to death." Now, these two other malefactors, obviously they had to have been uh, Judeans. Okay, it would make. It would make sense. "And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him and the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with them derided him, saying," now here, pay real close attention to this. This is the rulers and the priests that were mocking Christ while he was hanging on the cross. "He saved others, let him save himself, if he be Christ, the chosen of God." Okay? And pay attention here. "And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering him vinegar, and saying, If thou be the king of the Jews, save thyself. And a superscription also is written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew. This is the king of the Jews, or king of the Judeans. And one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us." Now, Do you catch the wording here? If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. Did you catch what the rulers and the priests and the soldiers were saying, who mocked Christ while he was hanging on the cross, coming to him and offering him vinegar, saying, "If thou be the King of the Jews, save thyself." And then you have, and the rulers also with them derided him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he be Christ, the chosen of God." Obviously, this is kind of reference to non-believers. Okay? Now, I mean, it would seem to make sense to me. But the other answering rebuked him, the other malefactor, saying, "Dost not thou fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds, but this man hath done nothing amiss." Okay, he's done nothing wrong. So here's this other malefactor that is basically pouring his life out, acknowledging his sin. And he said unto Jesus, "Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." And Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." And it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." And having said thus, he gave up the ghost. Now, if you pay attention to this, here, this thief on the cross, acknowledges his sin, asks for forgiveness, basically, and it says, "Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." And Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." Now, obviously, this was the first advent. If we kind of look at this and apply it as an example to us and to the present age, to present day, and when we look at this verse, "For I will not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of the mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that the blindness in part has happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in." Now, if you really study this verse out, the fullness of the Gentiles be come in does not end until that rock in Daniel's vision comes and smashes down on the feet of the statue of iron and clay. Okay? Which is very interesting. So, let's kind of look at a wide variety of verses in Zechariah. Okay? I got a whole bunch of verses all over the place here. But the point is I want to bring you is within these verses. "And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, The inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength, and the Lord of hosts their God. And that day will I make the governors of Judah like an hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem." Now that seems weird. Now, if we look at this in a spiritual mindset, the kingdom of heaven, the heavenly kingdom, there's a new Jerusalem, the kingdom of heaven, which the kingdom of heaven resides in those that believe on Christ, for we have no continuing city, and these types of things. We look to a Jerusalem that is above, which is the mother of us all, not a Jerusalem which is here on this earth, which is in bondage to this day. Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. So obviously this is talking about something that's going to happen at the end, where the inhabitants of New Jerusalem will inhabit Jerusalem over where Jerusalem is now. And if we skip down to verse 10, it says, "And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, and they shall look upon me, whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him, as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn." Okay. So here we see something happening here. Because, folks, those that are not believers in Christ, a Jew or Gentile, it doesn't make a difference. They are not Jews inwardly, I mean, they are only Jews outward in the flesh. Okay, and when you look at the aspect, here is this thief on the cross at the very last moments of his death. Okay, saying, acknowledging his sin, saying that we are getting our just punishment for our crimes. But Lord, please remember me when you come into thy kingdom. This was on his deathbed, basically, and here Jesus forgives him. He says, today, this day, you shall be with me in paradise. Flash forward all the way to the very end, and we kind of see the same resemblance regarding, the people of God, both Jew and Gentile, that are saved. The Jews that finally get their eyes open at the very end, just like it seems like the thief on the cross did. And we kind of see this resemblance here in this context as well, which I think is very interesting. I don't know. I mean, you have to let me know what you think on this. Zechariah 13:8 and 9. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but a third shall be left therein. And I will bring a third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried, and shall call on my name, and I will hear them, and I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. You can look at this both ways, and I will elaborate on this here in the next 2 verses. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the house rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people, the remainder of the people, shall not be cut off from the city. This kind of has an eerily reminiscence to what happened in the destruction of Jerusalem. Now, again, in Zechariah 13:8, 9, we can look at this, I believe, in 2 ways. One is 2/3 of the people perished and died during the siege of Jerusalem in 78 AD, and a third remained. Okay, you hear the stories of Jews living in Palestine all throughout history past 70 AD. Okay. In fact, there was a time when both Palestinian and Jews, before the nation of Israel was born in 1948, where it's well documented that they basically they got along. There was unity with them. They, there's videos you can watch on where certain Jews against Zionism would say that they would babysit each other's kids and these types of things. So I mean, there was people that got along, Palestinian and Jew alike, until 1948 something happened, and we have what we have now. Now again, and then you can look at it the other way, and historically, regarding all nations, the Romans, who at that time had the rule over all the nations of that part of the world, the residue, that small number of the Jews who were spared by Titus shall not be cut off, were not forbidden to dwell about the city. Meaning they were allowed to stay. Even though the city was basically ruined, it was demolished, destroyed, and these types of things. But then we pick up here in Zechariah 14:3 and 4. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. So, basically, my question is, when we look at the thief on the cross, when we look at the cross, is there a resemblance there to what's going to happen in the end regarding the thief that said, Lord, remember me when you come into thy kingdom? The thief that recognized his sin, basically asked for forgiveness. Jesus forgave him on his deathbed at the very last moment. And also to those unbelieving Jews who will in turn finally acknowledge the Messiah and recognize him that was pierced at the very end, and so therefore, both converted Jew and Israel of God, spiritual Israel, or Ephraim, if you will so likely put it, would be one stick in Ezekiel's hand, and they would finally be together again. Kind of like the same resemblance of the thief on the cross. Moment on his deathbed, on his last hours of tribulation, acknowledges sin, asks forgiveness, Jesus forgives him, he is saved, today you will be with me in paradise. Is there a resemblance to that and what is going to happen at the end? Go ahead, scriptures will be posted below. Go ahead and study this out further and do your homework. Truth be told, truth be known. Stay safe. God bless. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.